Damon had this ridiculous sense of being able to look at a rub and he could name it. He could taste it. I'll never forget. So he looks there and he goes, "Hey man, I see what you're doing over there." And he's standing at the back of my 20-foot trailer and he's looking at the seasonings on the nose. He goes, "Why you got that simmering docks in a Plowboys bottle?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "Man, you ain't gonna get that by me." He's like, "In the simmering docks bottle, you got smoking guns hot."
Welcome to the Pitmasters podcast. Today we are in Traeger headquarters with Chad Ward, and we'll get started and talk with him a little bit about all sorts of things barbecue. We're doing a barbecue 101. We got Anthony in the house. Say, hey,
what's
Anthony.
up?
We got Chad.
Hey.
All right, guys. Let's get it started.
What up, Rusty?
What's up, man?
Not much. Just chilling at Traeger.
Right?
Yeah.
This place is huge.
It is.
So we just want to get right to it and introduce Chad Ward, guys. Chad, say hey.
Hey guys, how are you?
What's up? Tell us a little about you, Chad.
Oh, so Chad Ward, Director of Barbecue Marketing for Traeger Grills, and then also the owner of Bent BBQ in Florida. Started competing back, 2007, and about 140 contests, 28 states. And I've been working with Traeger for about the last 5 years, been keeping me pretty busy.
Nice.
So I heard your first contest, you lost to a bunch of Boy Scouts.
I did. I love telling that story. It was probably like September 2007, Kissimmee, Florida, and there was 9 teams, and we finished 7th and lost to a troop of Boy Scouts. It was very humble beginnings, I'd like to say.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Traeger and what you guys do, what you guys are doing here.
Oh, so, Traeger, gosh, a little over closer to 6 years ago now, had some new ownership come in, Jeremy Andrus and some folks, and we've really just kind of rebuilt the company as far as how we go and what our disciplines are. And for us, we've invested a lot in technology. We feel like that's the differentiator. I mean, when Traeger invented the pellet grill, 33 years ago, it was pretty innovative. And what we found was when we kind of looked out and saw the marketplace is where you can be different is through innovation. So the Wi-Fi technology, some of the design of the grill with the backdraft exhaust instead of using a typical stack and some of those things, and just continue not resting on our laurels. We're staying after it, really focusing on customer service, product innovation, and our community. I think one thing we do better than any other outdoor brand is our ambassadors and our influencers that we work with. And our community is not just barbecue, but it's outdoors, it's culinary, fitness, those type of things. A lot of CrossFit folks like Traeger for many reasons. So just keeping that community strong, keeping that community putting out amazing content and sharing the story. And we think we got great sales guys, but actually some of our best salespeople are our customers.
Exactly. I'm a big fan of Traeger. I use a lot of Traeger there.
Yeah, you cook on Traegers.
Yeah, I compete on Traegers.
That's true. You compete on Traegers.
Big getting a lot of calls too. Yeah, exclusively. So this podcast is Barbecue 101, Chad. So I'm a new person to barbecue. Pretending. I'm walking into Bent BBQ. What am I doing?
After your last contest, it's probably the truth.
For us at the store, we make sure that all of our employees are super trained up and they're cooking every day and every night. So first thing we really do is what are you there to look for? And if they're looking for a smoker, obviously we're the largest Traeger dealer in the Southeast. Imagine that. We'll ask them, what are they looking for? They're looking to cook over live fire. They're looking to cook over pellets. Or they're looking for something simple, something that they want, a little bit of work to. Usually I will say 80% of the time, unless somebody's just dead set on wanting to cook over fire, attend to fire, if you will. We'll kind of talk to them about the Traeger and how it works and what it does. And then we'll go on and talk about, if they want to look at other options, whether it be a drum or a green egg or something like that, we can talk about that and kind of help find them where they're at. How many people the other thing people always kind of, what size should I get? And it's like, dude, no one ever came back saying I got too big of a smoker. Right. People always come back and go, God, for $200 more bucks, why didn't I get the 780 instead of the 575? And it's like, tried to tell you, but so size, what level of effort they want to put into it. What are the results they're looking to get? If they want to do a lot of long cook items, but they've got 2 or 3 kids and really don't have the time, then I kind of pushes you towards a Traeger. You know what I mean? If it's a single dude, a lot of time on his hands and he just likes messing around with fire, then Maybe he looks at another alternative. Also, we've had numerous customers that'll start with either, a charcoal or a Traeger, and then within 6-7 months come back and want to buy the other one just because they want to try another discipline and cook a little bit more and have more firepower and stuff. So that's kind of what we do. And then we get into, what do you like to cook? I've got we've got 4 basic recipes that we leave laminated at the store all the time. Spatchcock chicken, brisket, pork butt and ribs. And it's got a shopping list on it and everything, so you can kind of walk through. Another thing we do pretty unique at my store is every sauce is available to taste and every rub's open to taste. And that just came from me when I was kind of cutting my teeth, learning, getting sick of buying a rub because it had a cool label or it sounded like it was good. You get it home, you taste it, you're like, this is crap. You end up dumping it into the Tupperware that you use for your free catering rub. Yeah. The hodgepodge. Yep. And so you can taste everything. So we can ask, do you like sweet? Do you like savory? And then obviously take you over to the tasting table, let you sample a couple things and find out exactly what you want.
That's awesome. Yeah. Checklist would be huge. I wish I had a checklist when I was coming up.
So my question is, let's say I'm just starting out with a Traeger, right? And I want to buy a Traeger. What am I looking at if I'm just a guy who wants to just start cooking for the family? What's a good one I want to buy?
I think the Pro Series is really good depending on your budget. So the new Gen 2 Pro Series, the 575 or the 780, depending on the size of your family, how much entertaining you do. If you got a little lower price range, you can look at the old Pro 22 and Pro 22 and Pro 34 from the Gen 1 line. Those are a little cheaper price point. Both really functional, both, all workhorses. The Pro Series I cook on all the time at events, and I feel like it's a great place to get started. And then as you work on your discipline, you can justify a little more cost. Obviously, moving up to the Ironwood and the Timberline is something you can't go wrong with.
Yeah, so I have a lot of people that ask me, so by region, is Traeger is it better to get into a Timberline if I live in Northern America because of the weather, the deep winters?
It is. So the Ironwood's got partial insulation. The Timberline has full insulation. So if you are in those colder area environments, starting out with a Timberline is great because I've cooked on a Timberline below zero, cooking at 275, and it never got between 273 and 277. So it was dialed in. So it definitely helps the wind harshness. You're going to get some payback on that with your pellet consumption because your pellet consumption is lower due to the insulation. So there's some paybacks there. And and if you have the budget for it, it's a great place to start, especially in cold weather climate.
Very nice.
What about competition? So I want to go the competition route like Anthony goes, and I want to use Traeger smokers, which Utah Barbecue Company does. You guys do. A lot of people I've seen do Smoking Brethren, on and on and on. What am I looking to buy in that case?
I like something with a little bit. I would probably at least start with an Ironwood, just from the point of view of that second shelf on the Ironwood's a lot wider than on the Pro Series. So you could actually, if you were up against it and you needed to get some things on, you get a couple of racks of ribs up there if something was running behind, that kind of thing. So I kind of always look when it comes to competition, I'm more concerned about, okay, what about that oh shit moment that, something's delaying. I got to get chicken on. Where do I don't want to haul around grills and have just a bunch of idle space, but I want to have enough space that I know I can bail myself out. To me, 1300 is great. I usually cook my brisket and my pork butt at the same temps. And I can put my brisket and my pork butt competition-wise on a 1300. You just don't want to be lifting that thing in and out of a trailer or out of a truck. You want to make sure you got a trailer rig for that one. And so, that would probably be, I would probably say a 1300 and an Ironwood 885. And then on the Pro Series, I don't mind at all running the Pro Series for my ribs and chicken. I've done it for years on the old Generation 1 model. It works out perfect on on a smaller 575, you can get a pan of chicken in there, which is all I need, 16 pieces. And then even on that one, you can get 4 racks of ribs. And I used to cook 6 racks of ribs at contest. Now I cook 4 just because I found out I was never getting to the other 2. Right. And by cutting it down from 6 to 4, I actually concentrate and really focus on those 4 much more than I did when I had 6. Because I got 6. Yeah, one of them will figure it out.
Right. So when you're running 2 grills like that, my biggest problem is I got a chicken and rib setup, and then I got the pork and brisket. What woods would you recommend on your pork and brisket run?
So I run everything the same, all 4 categories, and it's a 50-50 mix of pecan and cherry.
Okay. So it's really really neutral. It's nothing overpowering.
I'm one of those that, I kind of came up, a guy named Rub Bagby in Florida. It was Swamp Boys Barbecue. It was a big mentor to me. And there's one thing Rub told me about competition barbecue, and it stuck with me ever since. He said, you want to cook the best average barbecue. But it's got to be perfectly cooked. But he goes, you don't want it to be too sweet. You don't want it to be too spicy. He said, you want it to be that middle of the road, best cooked barbecue on the table that day. And guys only won like 70 or 80 grand championships. So, that's kind of why I end up with that flavor or that pellet combo.
Nice.
Well, cool. So let's move on to Whiskey Bent. Tell me about that.
So Whiskey Bent, I started the store about 6 years ago in Lakeland, Florida. We started out in like a little, about 900 square foot shop. Kind of figured if you build it, will they come? Started the thing on a $30,000 budget. That's inventory, everything. And now we've got about a 4,000 square foot store, hit on earlier largest Traeger dealer in the country. Carry about 125 rubs, about 75 different sauces. Just came out with our own rub line and brine here a little over a year ago, which has been just wildly successful. It's been a real blessing. Got some other things in the works there. And we're a retailer, like I said, Traeger, Big Green Egg. We do some Napoleon stuff for people that want, that kind of thing. And then we carry about 14 different varieties of wood from all over the country, and about 100 different barbecue accessories. So nice. It's definitely a man's like kind of candy store, if you will.
Yeah, with the Whiskey Bent rubs, they're on point. But I'll tell you what, you got to play nice with that Blazing Bird stuff, man. That you will roast yourself with that stuff.
So a little hint on that. So the only difference between the Bird and the Blazing Bird is a seasoning called Peri Peri, and it's what KFC uses to make their original and spicy. So that's the same spice that goes into KFC to get the spicy version of their chicken.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Everyone around here, man. It's Whiskey Bent. Everything around here. It's true. I'm trying flipping through Instagram. Everyone's, I'm trying Whiskey Bent this and Whiskey Bent that. I'm like, fine, I'll go buy all of it.
Yeah, it's been that's been the thing that's been great is just the amount of people on social. We've got a couple of people that we've worked with, but and then that word got out, and now it's just like, yeah, it's kind of humbling to pull up your Instagram feed like, oh man, look at all these people that are using my stuff. And then what I like seeing, the true test is everybody will buy and try it once, but what do your reorders look like?
Right.
And I want to say, I just pulled that report last week. And since we launched the rubs, anybody that bought a Whiskey Bent rub is at about like a 92% reorder rate, which is unreal.
Well, because they're delicious. Like I said, I legitimately went down to Pit Stop and bought all of them. And that's what I do. I get locked on something and I'm like, oh, I got to get all this. So, I mean, I filter through that all the time. So, I'll try this. And I'm always mixing with it. So,
yeah, the guys at Pit Stop are a great retailer for us. They do a really good job. We've got one out in California called Modesto Market, which is kind of interesting. It's not a barbecue place. It's just kind of a market, if you will. And he's got some cool beef and some different things like that, and it's kind of a pretty hip place. Me and Benny Kendrick went out there and did a meet and greet a couple of months ago, and I think we ended up selling like 18 cases of rub in one day. It was unreal, but it was a good time.
Can you order that online through your store?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can go to whiskeyBentBBQ.com, and we've got all of our rubs and our brine there. One thing I've been messing around with that I've been really happy with is we got a brine called the Dunk, and I was just messing around trying to figure out some different uses for it besides, your typical chicken. And man, I did some ribs in it. I was so surprised at how much juicier they were. I did a control rack and then one that I let sit in the brine for about 8 hours. Didn't mess with the texture at all, but the juiciness of it, I was super impressed.
So it held a lot of moisture then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm a new cook. Just got my Traeger Pro 22.
Yep.
I am trying to cook something up. I'm going to use, what else do I need? Like, what is the one thing I'm going to that's going to elevate that game right out the gate?
Thermometer.
Agreed.
No doubt about it. I mean, to me, buying a Traeger and then buy yourself a Thermometer. I mean, they're out here in Spanish Fork. You guys should do a show over there one day. That would probably be pretty rad.
Yeah, we're trying to hook Kyle up on that. Hint. Yeah.
But, dude, that was one of the first tools I bought when I started in the competition game was Thermopens. I've never ventured far away from them. I've owned many of them. Great people. I mean, and you talk about somebody that stands behind their product. I mean, I had a Thermopen from when I originally started, sent it back to them, and they're like, all right, $15, and came back and it was fully refurbished. Like, and it's a little pricey, $100 for a thermometer. Sometimes when people look at it, but it's just one of those things that it's going to last. It's well worth it. We retail them at my store. And even if you can't start there, start with a thermopop. I think they're $35. You know what I mean? So you start with something. It's backlit. It rotates. It's a nice little starter or backup thermometer. So getting yourself a good meat thermometer, because everybody, when they start, they want to talk about, tell me how long it's going to take. And every animal's lived a different life. You know what I mean? So I can give you guidelines, but hey, this animal may work 3 jobs. This one may have lived at a country club. You know what I mean? And they're all marbled different. They're all going to cook a little bit different. So that's one thing. And the only way to determine when it's done is that instant read thermometer. Right.
And I agree. Spend the money to get the instant read, because when you open your lid, you want to be able to get in, get out real quick for the recovery rate.
For sure. And also remember on that you don't. It's just the very tip of that thermometer that's taking the temperature, and you'll have it within 3 seconds. It's great.
That's important to know, because that's actually something I've been cooking a long time. I actually didn't know that.
Yep.
And I saw someone do it, and I'm like, oh, they're not sticking all that way in. And my friend was with me. He's like, well, because you don't. That's the measuring part.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You'll notice when you look at the Thermopen, there's a tip of it, and then it widens out a little bit. And once it widens out, that's where it stops taking the temperature.
Yeah, my Thermopen is so crucial to me. I use everything, and I have some old ones I had from the restaurant times, because you couldn't put a Thermopen in your jacket. So I'll have it. My Thermopen's missing. I'm like, screw it. I'm using my finger. Like, we have other thermometers. Like, no, man, I don't. Yeah. I have stuff taking up space in my drawer, and that's all I have.
Yep. So I guess we'll go back to, okay, I got my Traeger. I got my Thermopen. I got some whiskey bent rubs. I'm going home. What am I cooking?
Yeah,
how are we breaking this grill in?
Yeah, so I think if you want to do a longer cook item, the one thing I always tell people to lead with is a pork butt. It's inexpensive, it's very forgiving, and it's not too damn hard. Cook it till it hits 165, wrap it in foil. When it hits 200, it's done. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's some things you can do on the back end to make it a little bit better. But, to me, pulled pork is a good one to get under your belt, get you confident. Plus, you got a little pork grease dripping in there, so that's going to help with some seasoning. If you want to do a shorter cook item, I always just think it's chicken, man, just a whole chicken. And I think, when we talk specifically about the Traeger, the good thing about that is we've all ate bad chicken growing up. Like that typical gas grilled chicken that's burnt on the outside and raw on the inside. Yeah. And literally, you can take that chicken, take it out, wash it down, cover it real good with seasoning, put the Traeger on 400, cook it for an hour, check the breast. I cook my breast to 160. It's going to carry over cook, especially bone in the other 5 degrees and stay nice and moist. And it's pretty well done. So, I think those are 2 great ones, whether you want a shorter cook or a longer cook, that'll help get it broke in, get you some good groceries on the table, and a little confident in your next endeavor.
Right.
Yeah, both those are really good meats, because you can take pork butt all the way up to wherever, Yeah. You can take chicken up to 200 whatever, and it's still great. So those are really good practice tips to do. So where would I go? What's a good place? So Traeger you said they have recipes online.
Yeah. So we have if you bought one of the new Gen 2 grills, we've got the app, and the app's tied in directly. Once you get your grill on your Wi-Fi network, you can push recipes to it from the app, monitor the grill temperature, monitor the meat temperature, as long as you use the leave-in probe. I would say you can go to the app and pick up all kinds of recipes from there. Or if you're online, TraegerGrills.com recipes. We were just talking about another one guy that's going to be a guest for y'all next week. Great resource, Malcolm Reed. Another good place to go check out recipes and how-tos. So I would say those 2 are a great start on getting some basic recipes under your belt.
So I've got all that stuff. I'm cooking. What are the biggest mistakes you see cooks like that making right out the gates that they can change? They can watch out for.
For some, I think people put sauce on way too early, so it over caramelizes and gives it a burnt flavor. To me, my recommendation always is make sure if you're going to paint that butt at the end or sauce that chicken, make sure you've got your sauce nice and warm. One, it's going to thin it out to more of a glaze, so you don't worry about getting those sauce lips when people bite it. And second is hot sauce going on hot meat works a heck of a lot better than cold sauce going on warm meat. It doesn't tend to absorb as well, and it kind of leaves it just a little gooey or icky. And then another way, if you want to make it just a little bit thinner on the sauce while you're heating it up, just take a pat or 2 of butter and put it in there and mix it real well. It'll help thin the sauce out, and it'll give it a nice sheen. That's what I do with all my competition sauces.
Very nice. So we're coming to the end of our first cook. What do we do when it's done? Like, you break into it immediately? What are you doing?
Yeah, so on the chicken, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it. put it on a tray and just let it sit on the counter inside for maybe about 15, 20 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes on chicken. Let that cooking process stop, let all those juices redistribute. Because if not, if you cut it right as soon as you pull it off, those juices are still really active. I mean, you've had it on a 400-degree fire. There's a lot going on in there. So you want to give that a chance to stop cooking, cool down, let the juices redistribute, and then you want to go ahead and slice into it and break it apart. On the pork butt, I'm going to take it, I'm going to pull it off, open up that foil that we wrapped it in, let all that heat, you can see all that steam come off. Once all that steam comes off on the counter, I'm going to wrap it back up and either put it in a dry cooler or an unlit oven and just let it chill out probably for a good 45 minutes to an hour. You're going to want that anyway to save your fingers. And then I'll usually take a pair of cotton gloves and then put a pair of disposable gloves on over it, pull it real good, get all the fat cap and stuff out of there. And then I'll take my rub, sprinkle a little bit of rub on it, take a little bit of the glaze that I use, put a little bit of the glaze in it real lightly. I don't like serving really saucy pulled pork, but infusing a little bit of that flavor at the end. One, helps with moisture, and two, just gives a little more of a flavor dynamic. And then I'll mix all that up and put it on the table and let's eat.
Nice.
So what about temperature? So there's two schools. I'm cooking this to X, or I'm cooking it until my probe goes in like butter.
I would say on bigger cuts like pork butts and brisket, I'm definitely more of a field cook, especially when it comes to cooking Wagyu briskets for like contests from Snake River. Because that I've had briskets go all the way up to 217 and win. Usually on Wagyu for me, the window is like 207 to 212. But once again, we get back to every animal's lived a different life. So time's a guideline, temperature's a guideline on those bigger cuts. And then what really gets it for me is tenderness. And so when I slide that Thermopin in, I wanted to go in with no resistance. When I get to the middle, I wanted to have just a little bit of resistance for that 3 to 4 degree carryover cook. That's going to break that final part down. When it comes to chicken and ribs, straight temperature. When it hits 160 in the breast, I'm done. Pull it off, rest it like we talked about. On ribs, I'm going to go between the two thickest bones in the middle. And once it's 204, 205, I'm going to pull it off and they're done too.
Very nice. So we're progressing on our cooks. We're moving on to brisket. And Chad, I love the way you explain this to people. It's the biggest argument online, fat cap up or down on brisket. And I love how you explain this.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, it's a principle we learned at a pretty young age. So the fact, so everybody that argues fat cap up is saying it's fat cap up because the fat moisturizes the meat. Well, fat's made up of oil. Muscle's made up of cells which contain
water.
And what two things don't mix? So a oil-based fat cap is not going to moisturize a water-based protein. So for me, cooking on a tray, now there are guys, Adam Franklin, some of those guys, because the type of pits they're cooking on, they like to cook fat side up, and I totally get that. But 90% of the time, people are asking me, how do you cook a brisket on a Traeger? Well, Traeger cooks with convection, so I'm going to want the fat cap down at the bottom, because you do get some, depending on how, if you like, especially if you're cooking hot and fast, or even at 275, you're going to get some radiant heat coming up from that drip pan. And so if you got radiant heat coming up from that drip pan, that fat cap is now your protection layer between that radiant heat and the meat that you're really trying to protect and keep moist. And then honestly, once it's done, I just take my electric knife, and that fat's kind of like butter at that point, and just kind of let the knife be your guide on taking that fat cap off and then flipping it over and slicing against the grain.
So do you do any competitions anymore? Or are you just too busy to do anything like that?
I think I did 3 this year. I cooked Lakeland Pig Fest because it's in my backyard. Me and Pittman cooked Houston Livestock Rodeo together in top 10 there with Chris Hatcher. And then me, Curtis, and Pittman and Austin cooked Memphis in May this year and finished 7th there too. And then I missed the Royal this weekend because of my college game day responsibilities this year. I think it was the first time I missed in 7 years. So
what are you doing with college game day?
Traeger is the official grill sponsor of ESPN College Game Day this year. We, years past, it had been Weber. We found an opportunity to partner with Home Depot, which is one of our big go-to-market chains. And so, so I've every week except this week, because I got an event with Snake River Farms that we're doing. Every week I show up on Thursday, cook along with the crew and feed about 150 people that it takes to put together ESPN Game Day every weekend. And then I'm there, depending on where we're at, somewhere between 4:30 and 6:30 in the morning, getting stuff ready to shoot on air. So
that ain't a bad gig though.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot of fun. Met some really good people. Home Depot's been great. You know, it's an awesome opportunity. I remember when Denny Bruce was here like last December, he called me in his office, the one right over there, and he said, how are things going? I said, man, they're going good. He's like, think they could go better? I was like, I don't know. What are you going to tell me? He goes, looks like we're going to get the sponsorship for game day this year, and we want you to be the face of it. I'm like, done. I'm in. I'm in.
So does Chad do? He goes and gets him a helmet and some pads.
Well, so let me tell you how that one worked. Let me tell you how that one worked out. It was pretty funny. So I'm sitting there, and because I'm only here usually 1 week a month, and so those other 3 weeks, a lot of ideas get tossed around and this and that, and so I just going through my emails on the road somewhere, and it's from our creative director, Sam, and he goes, hey man, I need your jersey size, your cleat size, what size football pants do you wear? I'm like, what is this? They're like, oh dude, we're going to do a whole photo shoot with you. So that uniform that's out there, I wore that thing across 2 days for 9 hours straight, shot 132 videos.
Wow.
And then all the other content we've used, the GIFs and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. It was just a that thing definitely smells game worn. Do
not touch it, Rusty.
I Febrezed it. It's all right.
We should take it. Game worn jerseys are expensive.
There you go.
They sell for a lot of money.
That's a one of one too.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So a couple things. So let's talk about we had a lot of questions on certain things that people say, like shigging at a competition, what that means, and what a couple of things like any words of that are barbecue lingo that people maybe don't understand.
Shigging's a good one. I'll tell you a quick shiggin story that I thought was pretty funny. So there was a time where everybody was cooking bone-in thighs, and that's fine. It's just what everybody was used to. And so we got the idea of, well, why don't we cook bone-in thighs and then also do the wing segments and kind of run them down the middle. And so, you always talk to judges after an event, and about 5 or 6 events in a row, we talked to some different judges, and like, man, somebody out there is doing wing segments and thighs, and they're amazing. Like, we didn't finish outside like the top 3 or 5 for probably 10 contests in a row. And man, dude, I don't know who's doing it. And we wouldn't even tell the judges. We're like, oh man, that's a good idea. We should start practicing that. And I'm like, please quit telling people. And this is back when I used to cook with my buddy Jared Hatcher, and I would take the tray out, and Jared would shield it to where you couldn't tell what we had in it. And then literally we just put it on the grill, close it, and nobody could, because the way we'd set up camp, once it got on the grill, people could only see what you were doing when you put it on and off. And man, we're running behind one day, probably about 10 minutes late getting chicken on. And so I just come bebopping down the back of the ramp, going to put it on the grill. And the guy sitting right next to us goes, y'all are the ones that are cooking wings.
Oh.
And I'm like, so we scored. I think we may have won that day in chicken. Next week, go out. This guy obviously had a big mouth. Talked to a judge, and he goes, Chad, I don't know what happened. He goes, today we had 18 entries that had thighs and wing segments. I was like,
18?
Time to move on to plan B.
18.
But it was like, if you think about it, it was like season 1. I'll never forget season 1 when Myron did Cupcake Chicken, Pitmasters. I went to a contest in Okeechobee, Florida. When it was over, I counted 24 muffin pans stacked up by the trash can.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I took a picture of it. I wish I could dig it up wherever, probably on 3 phones ago. But I was like, damn, you do one thing on Pitmasters and they're running out of cupcake chicken pans, and they're cupcake pans in friggin' Okeechobee, Florida because of this.
Yeah, I saw that. He was Chris Wiley. What's it? Oh, big.
Chris Lilly.
Chris Lilly, thanks. He was over there like, hey, what's going on? I remember that little chicken episode. That was pretty funny. He was thinking he was going to take his chicken idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're pretty open. And I was listening to you on Dan Patrick, and you said something that I am going to use forever now. And I used it already, but so when I'm someone who's like, what do you like? I'll tell you whatever I'm doing. You just knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Like, you let me know. Then you said, that's like, having Larry Bird teach you how to shoot, but you got to outshoot that guy.
Exactly.
Right? And that's like the best analogy I've ever seen, because I'm going to cook it. I've seen it. I've cooked certain ways. I've given certain people recipes. They don't cook it the same way at all.
Yep.
And so for me, shigging, people coming over and shigging, meaning, we have explained this before, but it's someone who comes over and intentionally tries to steal from you by looking at what you're doing. And so for me, it's like, yeah, do whatever, man. Knock yourself out. But there are times, such as what you're talking about with the wings, such as with the tins, that could change the game a little bit. That could, I personally would be weary about that. If I came up with a technique, I think techniques are a little bit different than maybe I'm using this spice, I'm using this,
Well, isn't that where it kind of broke down too? Because back in the early KCBS days, it used to be chicken breasts until one person switched into thighs.
Yeah,
and then
somebody
it
else
turned the whole entire sport technically.
Dark meat horizontal mustard has more flavor. Oh, let's try it. There's a back on the chicken thing. So I used to take and swap rub containers. So I would, whatever I was pouring out of it wasn't what it was. And a buddy of mine down in Florida, a guy by the name of Damon Woolley, he doesn't compete much anymore, but Damon had this ridiculous sense of being able to look at a rub and he could name it. He could taste it. I'll never forget. So he looks there and he goes, "Hey man, I see what you're doing over there." And he's standing in the back of my 20-foot trailer and he's looking at the seasonings on the nose. He goes, "Why you got that simmering docks in a Plowboys bottle?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "Man, you ain't gonna get that by me." He's like, "And in the simmering docks bottle, you got smoking guns hot." I was like, wow. So it always impressed me. So we there used to be a contest called Best of the Best put on by Kel Phelps down in Georgia. And you had to be a top 10 in your sanctioning body. So like in the FBA, the top 10 teams got invited. KCBS, top 10 teams got invited. Pacific Northwest Barbecue League top teams got invited. Top 10 out of Canada got invited. It just ended up at this big fairgrounds, with like 100 teams from all over the world. Right. And I got it was a back-to-back cook, and I want to say each day there was $50,000 in prize money. So I mean, not a lot of times you can pull your trailer somewhere and sit down and try to split up $100,000 over a weekend. And we're there with the great Bill Arnold, the founder of Blues Hog. Obviously later sold it to Tim Shear, but Bill was the guy and if you ever met Bill Arnold, just one of the nicest Southern dudes you ever met. Now, I've never seen him wear a pair of shoes. Usually he has a Blues Hog shirt on with the sleeves cut off, full overalls and no shoes. But obviously he's a legend. I mean, he created the most legendary barbecue sauce in competition. And so obviously knows spices really well, knows seasonings. And he comes out of his trailer, because I'm telling him about Damon, and Damon's there. And he comes out of his trailer and he's holding these 2 napkins with 3 rubs apiece on them. And Damon goes, "Don't even come any closer. I'll tell you exactly what they are." Boom, 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 boom. And Bill, did you think I wouldn't recognize your Blues Hog rub? Didn't even get within 10 feet of him.
Wow.
And so then Bill's like, "All right, this is a challenge." So he goes in and he comes back with like 12 and puts them down in front of Damon. And Damon's like, "Can I taste them?" He's like, "Yeah." Boom. Knocked all 12 out again.
12 for 12.
Yeah, unreal.
That's amazing.
Yeah, unreal ability of. And the thing about Damon was he was one of those tinkerers, and we have a lot of those in competition BBQ where they're always tweaking something, but they're tweaking so much that you can't measure what it was that made it better or worse.
Right.
Like you would go in his trailer and he had a full big Rubbermaid tote, and I bet if it had 1 spice bottle in it, it had 55.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
He's like the Rain Man of freaking barbecue.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely Blues Hog. That definitely Blues.
Yeah. So we talked about our local competition scene, like Utah. We're really friendly. We're not scared to share. But what's it like down in Florida? What's the competition scene down there? Is it secretive or is it?
It's a lot of the same way. It's still one of those areas where if you forgot turbinado sugar or something, you feel very welcome to go over to your neighbor and ask if they got anything. I've always been one of those, if you forgot something and I've got it and I don't need it, you're more than welcome to use it. But no, it's very friendly down there. Even to the point of kind of different than you guys here. Like, a lot of the bigger teams that are cooking 20, 25 times a year will get in Thursday night. And they'll do a big potluck, hang out. They all got motor coaches or whatever. And then that's kind of the new party night now. Friday, yeah, you'll have some drinks and this and that. And then it's obviously Saturday night, depending on how the results are, you either celebrate or, drown your sorrows. But yeah, I would say that the thing about most Florida barbecue events is they start pulling in on Thursday afternoon and a lot of guys don't leave until Sunday morning. So it really ends up being a full weekend, but that also makes it a little bit challenging when you're doing 20, 25 a year. It's the easy way to get burnt out.
Yeah.
And I remember I think my biggest year I did 26, and the next year I slowed down to like 14 or 15. And the reason was like, I found myself hacking for one competition, dreading having to do it all again the next weekend. And I'm like, dude, this is supposed to be a hobby. This is supposed to be fun. You shouldn't be dreading all this work. You know what I mean? And I just found for me, back before I got super busy with Traeger, 15 to 18 contests a year was about right for me,
Yeah.
So if you split that up, that's, depending on 4-ish per quarter. So, one a month, that's not too bad. And in Florida, it's weird because during grilling season is when we don't have barbecue contests because it's so damn hot.
Right.
I remember doing some contests. I did one in Marietta, Ohio in the middle of the summer with my buddy Matt Van. And I put my Thermometer on that. We were on this old, terrible asphalt basketball court at a school. And I put my Thermometer on that asphalt and it's at 132 degrees. And I was like, good Lord. Yeah. And then I cooked one in Florida outside of Orlando. Wake up the next morning. I'm like, why are the back of my calves so sunburnt? It was from the radiant heat off the friggin'.
Really?
Yes, off the asphalt. Oh, yeah, it's terrible.
I can't do heat, dude. Yeah. At all. We're going up to Montana for a competition next week, and it's supposed to be super cold. I'm pumped.
Bring it. I feel like cooler temperatures, you can control your pits a lot better and get a lot better results as well.
Practice for us is in the wintertime. Yeah. So I'm used to snow. I'm used to cold weather. I'm used to all that. You bring heat, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, wait, this is working perfectly. What am I doing? So a question I have, because I started out this way, and I know that you said that one of your first competitions, you were rolling out there downloading stuff to learn how to cook a brisket. So when you first started out, I started out the same way, using my own. I was trying to create my own rubs, and I see a lot of that with backyard cooks right now because I think they think that it's cheaper, and I don't know that it is.
It definitely isn't. And the other thing to look at is, is it going to be consistent every time? You know what I mean? Whereas if you buy rubs that are already pre-made, obviously those are all going through a co-packer, which has a very specific process, much tighter quality restrictions. Whereas if you're making it yourself, how long has that pepper been in the cupboard? How fresh is all your stuff? It takes a lot of the learning curve off of it too. Obviously I ended up building my own rubs. That's what these are based off of. But getting started, to me, that's just one variable that you can take out and kind of make it easy by picking my stuff runs pretty good on comp stuff. Pittman stuff, Meat Church does well. I've hit on some of the big traditional rubs that have done really great in competition. That's your Smoking Guns Hot, your Smoking Guns Sweet, your Cimarron Docks Rib Rub, obviously Blues Hog Sauce, those things. Because what you can do, even if you're buying rub off the shelf, is you can layer them. And then that layering is what makes your flavor profile just a little bit different than the other one. The one thing I always just try to tell people to stay away from is what we talked about earlier. Nothing too extreme. You'll hear these guys sometimes like, well, my granny's got a blackberry barbecue sauce recipe that I'm going to run on my ribs. And I'm like, I'm going to strongly encourage you not to do that. Because out of 6 judges, there's going to be one there that hates blackberry.
Yeah.
And that's the thing to stay away from. Try to just be that down the middle flavor profile that everybody likes.
Yeah, you play with that stuff in your backyard. You have a family event. And you're like, oh, it's huckleberry season in Montana. Let's throw some of these in the sauce. That's where you play with that, not at comp.
Oh yeah, or make a cobbler. Yeah.
Just because your friends like it, don't mean the judges will.
Absolutely, dude. Why do your friends like it? Guess what? You probably got a cooler full of beer. It's free food. They didn't have to cook. That sounds good, and I haven't even tasted a bite yet.
Good example is I threw some ribs on yesterday, and I burned them to a damn crisp.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone's like, these are good. No, they're really good. I'm eating them going, yeah, for like really bad jerky, they're delicious. But, they're going to tell you anything, man. And so... Yeah. And talk about layering. Like for me, like when you're layering a rib, let's say, what's the kind of profile you're looking to go down the first and second and third or fourth or fifth, or however crazy you want to get?
So for me, with ribs, tell you what I used to do, and I'll tell you what I do now with my stuff. So with my stuff, I take, believe it of all things, I take the Bird, which is our poultry rub, and I put it down first. And the reason I put it down first is it's got the strongest color. So to me, when it comes to layering, I look at, I want the richest color and the most savory rub on first. Because then when that sets, it's going to be really nice. Another one that's good here is the Traeger Pork and Poultry. That's another good one as a base layer on ribs. And then I come over the top with my Old Fashioned, because the Old Fashioned's got a little sweet to it, a little cinnamon. So that works. Back in the day, I would take Smoking Guns Hot, lay Smoking Guns Hot down first, and then go Simmer & Doc's rib rub over the top. Because you can remember when you go to wrap with all that butter, all that agave, you can afford to have a little bit of kick on that first rub because you're going to mellow it out a whole bunch when you add in all the agave, all the brown sugar, that kind of stuff during the wrap.
Yeah. So when I was taking your class here at Traeger headquarters, one thing that I did pick up on, you always said, you put your heat in your sauce, not on the meat.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I messed up chicken by putting on something way too hot, and then you can't backtrack out of it.
Yeah, if you end up getting your sauce too hot, I mean, there's 100 ways to fix that between, white grape juice or even adding some butter to tone it down some, those kind of things, any kind of sweet, a little bit of agave offset it. So those kind of things are easy to fix. And another thing on ribs, just because we were talking about ribs, made me think about one thing I always like to tell people when it comes to competition is, never turn in something that's undercooked. I would rather run a risk of having something slightly overcooked. Like ribs, I'll tell you, I took first place at the contest down in Boca a couple years ago. Ribs came off, they were like 208 to 209, like way over.
Way over.
And so I skipped the saucing process. I had the glaze hot. So what I did was I took and I had a box fan and I had a box. And this kind of redneck, but it worked. So I ended up making pretty much just this cooling tunnel. So I put the sauce on there, turn the fan on, and it's super cold. And it's just got this tunnel of cold air. And so what ended up happening was it made the ribs seize back up on the bone. And the other cool thing about it was it set the sauce, and some of the sauce kind of pulled in to the meat. And dude, I remember I'd let them sit there for like 45 minutes, and I'm like, they're going to be cold, but they're going to be damn good. And so I hit them one more time with some hot sauce, or hot glaze, temp, not taste. And, just to wake it up a little bit, let that set, and then slice them and put them in the box. I want to say it's a 179.4, almost perfect score.
Wow.
So there's always little triage things like that. If you overcook a money mussel, one of the best things you can do is take it, put it in a Ziploc bag, find your coldest cooler, drop it in there, shock it for about 2 or 3 minutes, and it all tighten back up, and then you can hit it with some warm sauce.
Wish I would have known that in my last comp.
Yeah, I don't know how many I've overcooked. Where I'm just like, I've turned it in, pulled.
Yeah. But that is definitely one that'll save you on an overcooked money mussel.
So you're at home. Are you wrapping your brisket and your ribs and your pork butts and all that?
I do, but I don't. I wrap everything. My dad likes non-wrap dry rub ribs, so I'll cook him some of those every now and then. But if I'm cooking for me, the family, the girlfriend, whatever, I'll usually wrap. I just won't go to the extent of the comp wrap. It's just too rich. You can only eat 1 or 2 of those ribs. So I'll go more of a maybe a little bit of turbinado sugar and some white grape juice. One of my favorite sprays that I like for spritzing, so I don't have a set time when I spritz things. I spritz them when they look dry. And I like to, on pork, I'll use that imitation butter that McCormick has. I'll take that and dump it into a 20-ounce spray bottle, and then fill the rest up with white grape juice. And it tastes just like movie popcorn. I mean, it's delicious.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So, hold on, lost my train of thought.
Okay. Well, let's get it back.
So it was about wrapping. Why did I lose that? That's crazy.
I don't know.
Oh, the turbinado sugar. I think that's important to touch on. You do that so it doesn't burn, right?
Yeah. So one thing to always remember when you're cooking with sugars is the smaller the granular sugar, the lower the melt point. So what that means is if you use fine brown sugar, like in a rub, like we're getting back to making your own rub, and you're cooking it 275, 325, you're like, what are all these little black specks on my ribs? It's all those little crystals of sugar that have overcooked and over caramelized and now have a burnt flavor. So the larger the granular sugar, the better. Enter turbinado sugar. Turbinado sugar is going to melt before it burns. So that's why you want to use that one.
And are you cooking hot and fast on your Traegers? Are you cooking low, slow, or does it matter what you do difference?
Used to I was 275 the whole time. Lately, because of the super smoke setting on the Ironwood and the Timberlines, I'll start everything at 220 minus chicken. Ribs, pork butt, brisket, I'll start at 225 super smoke. And then once that process is over and I'm going to wrap, then I'll move to 275. On chicken, I cook it at 275 or 325 the whole entire time.
Are you resting your ribs?
Not too much. I would prefer to pull them off, sauce set and everything, about 30 minutes before I got to start building the box. I'll just take and put 2 racks in a pan and slide them in my Cambro and just let them hang out there for about 20 minutes. And then I'll pull them out and slice them and put them in the box.
So I'm at home with the brisket. I didn't pick up any brisket rub. What don't I use out of my kitchen on that brisket? Because I've heard a lot of people say they made major mistakes out of their cupboards.
Yeah, I would stay away from anything real herby. I would stay away from anything sweet. If that happened, I would just go Texas, man. I'd go salt, garlic, pepper. That would be it.
The biggest thing that I've heard about going Texas style brisket is a lot of people use table salt. That is a big no.
Yeah, big no. You want to use kosher salt for sure.
Kosher salt. Use something with the heavy grind or whatever.
Or even if you can find a nicer salt like a Jameson kosher or something like that, that's really worth it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Texas guy. That's for sure. Everything I do is Texas this, Texas that. But I love to use some rubs and switch it up, especially, I don't know, just for fun. But I burnt those Texas ribs yesterday. It's not a load of sugar on it. I don't know what I did. I'm still bummed about it, man. That was so crap.
No football? Was it Thursday night? No, that's tonight.
Yeah.
No, I just did it. I don't know what happened. Pulled them out. They're burnt. All I did was like, what did you put on your apple cider vinegar?
You would have done fine if you were cooking on a Traeger.
That's probably it. Right? Okay. So just kind of, we're going to wrap up here a little bit. So any last words you want to give someone who is looking to get into cooking a lot for their family, stuff like that? But I'm sorry, let's just do the competition thing. So they want to get into competition.
Yep.
What's your suggestion for that?
Once again, I think it's one of those things, try to find somebody else that has the same passion that you do that you get along with. Competition cooking is a lot more fun when you got a couple of team members than when you're just cooking by yourself. A lot less stressful too, especially when you're getting started. That would be it too. Read everything you can. I'm also a firm believer now too, and there's so many competition barbecue classes out there. You can really cut your initial investment by cooking a contest or two so you understand the stress of it, what happens, this and that, and then going and attending yourself a really good competition class. Tons of resources online. I don't know if it's still, you guys will have to tell me, I don't know if it's still as prevalent as it used to be, but the Barbecue Brethren was like one of the best tools.
I'm on it all the time.
Yeah, one of the best tools I had coming up, because you could go out there and you had all these, wirely veterans, of the competition circuit. And, hey, I did this. Anybody got any feedback? Just a really good group of people over there. So that's another good resource. All kinds of videos out there that you can check out. But yeah, I would say that's one of the things is educate yourself as much as possible and frickin' practice cook. You know what I mean? And go out there on a Saturday before you spend $1,000 and go compete. Go out and set up, start on Friday night, just like you're at a contest, but you're doing it in your backyard. Go through your timelines. The first thing I do every week of a contest is I've got about a 6-page Excel spreadsheet, and it lines out my whole process from Wednesday till Sunday. And it is, get your chicken, trim your chicken, make sure that all this stuff is packed. 11 o'clock Friday night, make sure the pit's lit. 12, brisket goes on. I mean, the whole competition is laid out for me. All I got to do is execute it. And so I would say having 1 or 2 cooks in your backyard where you can set up that timeline for yourself. So that way, if you overserve yourself, you're just sick, you sleep in, you don't hear your alarm, whatever, what you've missed and you know where you need to go make it up at.
Yeah, we had a sleepover the first time we were getting ready for comps, and we had all the team over, all 4 of us. We're sleeping in my house in the basement, we did the whole thing. So
it's great. It's a great way. It's a great way to really get your feet wet out without the pressure of not getting something turned in time, not putting your best foot forward, that type of thing.
Exactly. That's 2 episodes in a row with both guests, checklist and practice cook.
Yeah. So do you have any classes coming up here in Utah or anywhere else?
I'm going to be doing another one. So last night we did a tailgate class with Bart Oates. So 3-time Super Bowl champ. 2 with the Giants and then 1 with the 49ers. And me and him co-hosted a tailgating class. It was a wild success. We had a great time. And he brought the Lombardi Trophy, which was pretty badass.
I've seen that all over.
So I have never seen a Lombardi Trophy in my life. I get to hold one in January at the Super Bowl on Dan Patrick's show set. Last week on Monday, went to Foxborough and did Dante Hightower's charity event. He brought a replica out that's sat next to me all day while I cooked. And then Bart brought one in yesterday. So in 2 weeks, I've held 2 Lombardi trophies, which kind of rad.
That's awesome.
I just want to hold the Saints one. That's all.
There you go.
All right.
I've only held a silver medal.
Yeah,
Olympic silver medal. That's the closest to it. big trophy I've ever held.
Yeah, I do have a class coming up at the end of October. We should have it up on the website. It's going to be another tailgating class. Also, go over to TraegerGrills.com, shop class. Danielle is doing a bunch of classes out on the West Coast. We just posted them this week. Check those out. Danielle teaches a really, really good class. So if you're in that area, check it out. It's definitely worth the investment.
And I'll tell you, if you guys take any kind of classes, I mean, just a guy who just bought a Traeger or is just learning to cook, all the way to competition, just take these classes, because you think, well, that's just a backyard cooking class. I've taken some and I've gotten a lot out of it. I mean, if you pay $50 to learn one or two little sneak tidbits, it's going to be worth it in the long run. So don't be shy about thinking, oh, it's not a competition class. That don't make any difference.
No, and they also offer other classes too, like wild game, like I haven't had experience cooking a ton of that, and going to a class, you learn so much because it's a completely different meat. It has no fat. And you got to learn techniques on how to cook through that.
It's gamey. You got to get that out of it. Cool. So where can people find you? Yeah,
easiest ways, Instagram, Bent BBQ. If you have a question, you heard this podcast, want me to go into something a little more detail, all you got to do is send me a direct message. I try to answer them every 24, 48 hours. I think Anthony can tell. I mean, me and him have texted back and forth and talked numerous competition things. I mean, I feel very blessed to be in the position I'm in. So anytime I can give back and help anybody else, it's my pleasure.
All right, guys. Well, that'll do it. We're here at Traeger headquarters in what city were we in?
Salt Lake
City. No, it's Sugar House. Salt Lake City for all those out there. But anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. And next week, who do we have, Anthony?
We'll have Malcolm Reed, How to Barbecue Right.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. So, guys, stay tuned for that. We'll have that one next week. And thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.
Bye.